Hi Year 7, it's Mrs. Mamo again, and in this video we're measuring mass. Mass is what we talk about when we talk about how much matter is in something. You might often commonly call it weight as well. Weight is actually slightly different, and in fact the technical term is mass. So looking at measuring mass today, we use a couple of different things. We might use a manual device like this triple beam balance, or you might use an electronic balance or a set of scales like this. Now you might be used to using something like this in your kitchen at home. The important thing when you're using the electronic scales is that you keep them flat on the bench. They don't work, and you can see here, if I pick them up. Alright, if I pick them up or move them around, if they're not flat on the bench, they're not going to work properly. So it's very important that your scales sit flat on the bench before you start. And my scales here are okay, they say 0. But sometimes you might actually get a measurement when you turn them on that doesn't actually say 0. It might say 1 or 2 or even 100 or 20 or a negative number. That's okay. If that happens, you just need to press this button here that says tear or 0, which means just bring the scale back to 0. You can also see here there's a little light lit up that says G. Alright, that's just to indicate to me that we're measuring in grams. Sometimes you might find that it has a different unit there, like FLOZ, or ounces and pounds, or even millilitres, but we don't want to use those scales because the proper unit for measuring mass is grams and kilograms. So I'm going to use my electronic scales now to measure my test tube rack, and I can see there that they measure 416 grams. Sometimes you might actually have an electronic balance that actually measures to a decimal place, so it might be a little bit more accurate than this one, and it might say 416.2 grams. So you should always write down the degree of accuracy there. Okay, so these are very simple and straightforward to use. You just need to make sure you're in the right units and that it starts at 0. Alright, and then you can just go away and measure. Another way of measuring things that you might use is our triple beam balance here. That's okay. Our triple beam balance here. So our triple beam balance has a number of parts to it. Okay, it has firstly our balance pan. This is where we sit our object. It has 3 sets of sliding scales, or 3 beams, hence the name triple beam balance. And it has our 0 mark, where we're actually trying to balance to. Alright, so how you measure with a triple beam balance is you slide all your weights all the way down to the balance pan end, and you'll notice your line here should be 0 or close to 0, and then we put our object on. Now obviously now I'm just using a beaker of water for this one, but you can see that this is not balanced. This line is well above the 0 mark here. So what I do is I take the largest mass first, so this is the 100 gram mass, and I slide it along, and you'll see there's little notches along the beam, so you slide the mass along until it sits in one of the notches. So that's 100 grams. 200 grams. And you see when I get to 300 grams, the whole thing overbalances. So once it overbalances, I need to slide it back to the previous notch, so the 200 gram notch. Then I go to the next smallest mass, so that's the 10 gram mass at the back, and I slide it down 10 grams, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60, it's overbalanced again. So now I need to take it back to the 50, the previous notch, and now I take my smallest mass, which I need to slide along until my pan comes to a nice balance here. Slide it along. That's overbalanced, so I need to go back a little bit. we need to check. It's very close now. This is quite fiddly getting these exactly right, but we need to make sure that they balance properly. So you can see now that my 0 mark is balanced with the line on the beam, except I just bumped it a little bit. So now to find out how much this weighs, I need to add up the masses on the 4 different beams. So it's a little bit hard to see with the computer there, but I'll lift it up like this so you can get a better look. All right, and so we can see that this is 200 grams plus 50 grams at the back, and at the front it is 4.5 grams. So 200 plus 50 plus 4.5. So that tells me that my beaker of water is 254.5 grams, sorry. And that's how I use my triple beam balance to measure mass. So you won't use these ones too much, but you'll often use the electronic ones, and you might be asked to use these ones in the lab too. So that's how you measure mass in the science lab.